everybody. This is Mr. Rob, and welcome back to another episode of the Washington Commanders franchise here on Madden NFL 24. And we have reached the end of the regular season in year number 2. Our Washington Commanders did not make the postseason for the second straight year, so this means it's time to recap our year, see what happened in the year, simulate the playoffs, see who will actually be playing in the Super Bowl this year, as well as go over a couple of other things like the standings and our schedule and player stats, as well as the coaching changes that are going to be happening in the NFL. So if you're excited for that one and this episode, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Like I just said, the Commanders did not make the postseason this year. They finished with a record of 7-10, which is an improvement over last year. We finished 6-11 in year 1, 7-10 in this year. You can see the team ranks at the bottom. We fared a little bit better, specifically on defense. Last year, we were dead last in every category, and you can see on the bottom, we were 6th in offensive points per game, 7th in yards per game passing, 2nd in rushing yards per game. And on defense, we were the 23rd best defense, which is better than 32, 25th against the pass, and 7th against the run. One thing I will say about those stats is I feel like Madden this year and the sim games don't necessarily do a good job at simulating stats. There's a lot of games where the quarterbacks don't pass for that many yards. There's not a lot of offense going around anyway, so it feels like the numbers are kind of inflated. I don't think we were the 6th best offense. Definitely not the 7th best pass. We were, I would say, probably like below middle of the pack, and I don't think our defense was as bad as that, but sim games don't get as much scoring, as much statistics as played games, so it kind of skews us a little bit, but I still want to respect those stats a little bit. Now, we are going to go through the postseason today, and one thing I do want to say is we're not going to do the Super Bowl today, because that will actually be live streamed this Saturday, just like how I did in year 1 where we live streamed the Super Bowl. I'm going to live stream the year 2 one as well. It'll be this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll figure out today who's playing in that game, but we won't watch it until then. And then the next week will be where we start to do free agency and the draft. So exciting things coming here in the Commanders franchise as we get ready for year 3. I've never made it past a 3rd year in my Madden series, so it's kind of exciting because we're well on pace to get past 3 years. So I'm looking forward to it. You guys' support has been awesome. This series has been doing so well ever since I started it back in August, and I can't thank you enough for the support. But let's get into it. Let's recap how we got to 7-10, because it is a 17-game season, so it's kind of easy to forget sometimes. We started off week 1, we lost to the Saints 17-14, and then in week 2 we lost 37-7 to the Browns, and then we lost 31-24 to the Giants. So we started off losing 3 straight, and that was tough because I do think these were winnable games. Our offense just got off to a super slow start to begin. Kirk Cousins came in. He played very bad to begin the season, and we started off with 3 straight losses. Then we did beat the rookie Caleb Williams and the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-17. The Steelers were 3-0 coming to that game, so that was a big win, specifically on the road for us. So the defense played well. Kirk Cousins played well. Then in week 5, we lost to the Panthers 35-32 on a last-second touchdown from Young to Adam Thielen. The Panthers just threw all over us in that game, and our offense just had a hard time keeping up. So we dropped to 1-4. And then we started to play better. We beat the Titans 20-10. Baker Mayfield was making his Tennessee debut that game. He got hurt. Will Levis had to step in. Will Levis, who had gotten benched, didn't play good either. So we won 20-10. Then we lost on Thursday night against the Ravens 31-24. Lamar Jackson, like he did all season, played very well, so we drop another one. And then we win 2 straight. We destroyed the Bengals, who made the postseason this year, 41-8. But the Bengals were missing a lot of pieces in that game. There was no Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow got hurt on the first play from scrimmage. So they were playing with backup Carson Wentz the entire time, and Carson Wentz this year was terrible. And this actually affected the Bengals because they went on a little bit of a losing streak after this game because of no Burrow, no Mixon either. He didn't play that game, no Chase. Bengals were able to rebound. They kept their way in the playoffs, but this game was a big catalyst for a lot to happen in Cincy. Then we beat the Buccaneers 26-20. Kenny Pickett in Tampa Bay. He did not play good either, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with him out in Tampa Bay. He ended up getting benched later in the year for rookie J.J. McCarthy, so we'll have to see what happens with Tampa Bay in the offseason. All right, sorry about that. I had the maintenance guy coming to my door. So back to where we were. We had the bye week after the Buccaneers game. Then we lost in Dallas 41-31. Just mistakes kind of cost us that game. Then we rebounded with the Bears 24-13. And we just kind of continue to trade wins and losses at this point. We then lost in our rematch against the Cowboys again, 34-20. Just more turnovers. That was kind of the story of the games that we lost. And then our defense pitched a shutout against the Giants, 24-0. It was so awesome to see us actually shut out a team, which shows that I feel like our defensive stats are a lot worse than they should be because the defense played good in a lot of games this year. And then unfortunately we were 6-7 and we had a real shot at the playoffs. And then we lost 3 straight. We lost to the Eagles 30-17. Eagles were a very good team. They're the hottest team going into the postseason. So I mean, I kind of expected that. Then we lost 28-25 to the Cardinals in a game that I thought we definitely should have won, especially if you wanted to be a playoff team. We just couldn't stop Kyler Murray. He torched us on the passing game, had a couple of big runs against us. Very frustrating game. And then we capped off our 3-game losing streak with another loss to the Eagles. The score doesn't reflect it. We were getting killed that game. We just somehow made it a close game in the fourth quarter. But at least we ended the season with a very emphatic W against a playoff team in the Atlanta Falcons, the team that actually won the NFC South 48-14. So we finished 7-10 in the regular season. Here's a look at the standings going around the league. The best team was the Cowboys. They finished with the best record. And the worst team is the Jets, the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers retired last year. They went with Zach Wilson this year. It was another horrific season. So the Jets have the number 1 pick. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. And they also fired their head coach in Robert Saleh. And then the Buccaneers do have the 2 pick. And then the Saints and the Panthers. That shows you how bad the NFC South was this year. But interesting. In the AFC North, the Steelers won the division 11-6. The Bengals led the way for a lot of the time, but they kind of gave it up down the stretch after the kind of series I talked about after Joe Burrow went down. But he is healthy. He's good to go for the postseason, so I would not count out Cincinnati. The Ravens, they missed out. They went 9-8, but did not make the postseason. That's kind of a disappointment for them. And the Browns finished 7-10. In the AFC South, it was the Jaguars who emphatically won the division 13-4. They are the 2 seed going into the AFC playoffs. The rest of the division kind of sucked. The Titans went 8-9. They had no real quarterback. The Colts went 8-9. And the Texans went 6-11. In the AFC East, the Patriots won the division 13-4. The Bills threw it away on a 2-game losing streak. They finished 12-5. The Dolphins, a disappointing year, 7-10. And then the aforementioned worst team in the league, the New York Jets, with a 2-15 record. In the West, the Chiefs won that division 14-3. They are your 1 seed in the AFC. The Broncos slide in on a wild card spot, 10-7. Good for them. And Shedeur Sanders, first year as starting quarterback. He was a guy that we wanted to draft this past year. He got the pick right before us, and he has superstar development. So that one really hurts the inside, but good job for Shedeur out there in Denver. The Chargers, they finished 8-9, and the Raiders 7-10. As far as the NFC, the North, the Vikings won that division 9-8. They won a winner-take-all game against Green Bay Week 18. The Lions get in, though, 8-9 with a wild card spot. Shows you how low the NFC was. The Packers also 8-9, and the Bears 6-11. In the South, the Falcons won 9-8, and the Panthers 6-11. The Saints 4-13, and the Buccaneers 3-14. In our division, we're the only team that didn't make the postseason. The Cowboys are the 1 seed. The Eagles are the best wild card, riding a 10-game winning streak going into the playoffs, the hottest team in the NFL. The Giants, they slip in at 8-9. I don't think they deserve to be in, but nonetheless. And then us at 7-10. In the NFC West, the 49ers won that division 9-8, not very convincingly, but they gutted out. The Cardinals 8-9, the Rams 7-10, and the Seahawks 7-10. So we talked about the playoff teams a little bit. We'll look at the playoff bracket in a minute, but how about those teams that didn't do good? What happened to their coaches? And there were a few firings going around the NFL. Looks like the Titans have cleaned house. Mike Vrabel has been fired, so he is now gone. Tennessee looking for an opening. I had to think he would get a job somewhere else, though. You know, very solid tenure out in Tennessee. We'll see what happens to him. The Saints, they clean house. They fire both coordinators and Dylan Allen after being a bottom team. And the Jets, the worst team in the NFL, they fire their coordinators and Robert Saleh, so they're looking for a new head coach going into their hopefully new era. The Dolphins, they didn't fire their coach, but they did fire their offensive coordinator. I guess they weren't really happy with a 7-10 record when you got Tua, Waddle, Hill, and Devon Achane in the backfield. So rightfully excuse me. The Buccaneers, they clean house as well. Todd Bowles, I have to think this is his last job as a head coach. It did not work out in Tampa Bay. The Browns, they fired just their offensive coordinator. They fired Kevin Stefanski last year, so their OC only makes it 1 season. And the Bears, they don't fire their coordinators, but they fire Matt Eberflus, their head coach. So that's interesting out there. So a couple of openings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 head coaching jobs are open. As far as us, we keep our staff the same. And unlike last year, I'm going to wait a little bit before I reveal the head coaches. I want to see what the CPU does in terms of hires. Last year, I kind of did the head coaching carousel for them, but I do want to see what the CPU does. So I might not reveal the head coaches at the end of the episode. I haven't decided yet. This is a live commentary part. The second half of the episode is after recording. So I haven't made up my decision yet, but you might see those at the end. So let's take a look at our stats now. So we spend most of the episode just kind of recap where we went. As far as quarterback play, Kirk Cousins passed for 4,369 yards on 62% of his passes, 28 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. I mean, he had a very up and down year. I think Cousins, he had games where he played great, and when he turned the ball over, he turned the ball over a ton, and he only signed a 1-year contract. He's 36, so who knows what the future holds for Captain Kirk. I mean, statistically, it was his worst season in quite some time. You can see here's his game stats. I mean, he had games where he threw for, multiple touchdowns, and he had plenty of games where he threw for multiple interceptions, specifically in the losses. If he threw for over 2 interceptions, we only won one of those games. So, it was really just came up to him, and it wasn't there all the time. Sometimes he didn't get some help. His receivers would drop passes or whatever. But, we did draft Michael Penix Jr. last year. He sat all of this year. He learns the playbook. I have to think he would be the starter next year. I mean, we don't know his depth trait. He has hidden development. He's been maturing on the bench. He's been progressing. So I'm interested to see. He probably gets the nod. So this is probably the end. I'm not going to say it is, but it's probably the end of Kirk Cousins in his Washington career. It'll be interesting to see if it's the end of Kirk Cousins' career in total. On the ground, this is where we really succeeded. Devin Singletary, man. I mean, we traded for him at the deadline. We sent Brian Robinson Jr. to the Ravens, who actually played really good in Antonio Gibson's absence, and he had a really good year of his own. 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground. Most of that came while he was a Washington Commander. But, I mean, Devin Singletary, he was incredible when we acquired him. 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns just on the ground. Gibson is a superstar back. I mean, you can see his average 6.8 yards a carry, but he just gets hurt. He only played in 11 games, and we needed somebody to kind of help with Gibson carrying the load, and that's exactly what Devin Singletary was able to do. I mean, he was listed as a starting running back, and he had a sensational season. I mean, you can see he really got the chance to shine this year, and it paid off. Here's his rushing stats. In the receiving game, he had 500 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he had 17 total touchdowns for Devin Singletary. It really kept Gibson fresh, in my opinion. It allowed him to have such a high yardage per average because he wasn't getting hurt. I'd like to see his numbers go up a little bit more, but I didn't want to wear him out. He did become a superstar last year, so I know he has it in him. Maybe Singletary is also under contract next year, so I think this duo does return, barring something out of the blue. So I was very happy with the run game. Cousins added 3 touchdowns of his own, and even Chris Rodriguez Jr. got in for a score. As far as the receiving game, it was kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, the man who stands out at the top is Terry McLaurin. 90 catches, 1,496 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Scary Terry has evolved into one of the best receivers in the National Football League. He is incredible. He topped what he did last year, and he had a sensational season last year. I mean, look at these games. 152, 148, 137, 129, 120. I mean, he had an immaculate season. He was by far and away the go-to guy. He was our top receiver. He could just make plays after the catch. But after him, I mean, nobody really stepped up. Our next closest guy was Curtis Samuel, who had 584 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was only signed in preseason to a 1-year deal, so I'm not sure if he'll be back again. He even started off slow in his career. Or in his season. Like 1 catch in week 1, then he got hurt. He didn't play again until week 6, and he made some plays, but had this really slow stretch. He had a confidence issue midway through the season. We were able to fix that. He played a lot better in these closing end of the season, but he only played in 13 games, so I don't know if Curtis Samuel is a Commander next year. We just never really got that solid number 2 guy. Even Dotson in his third season, I mean, it was a lot like his second, 525 yards, only 1 touchdown, missed 2 games, dropped a couple of passes. You know, we have the option to pick up his 5th-year option in the offseason. I think we're going to, just because he is young. He does have star development, so he does have good hands. I just need to see those hands more often. He dropped a lot of tough passes that were contested. Year 4 is going to be a big year for Jahan Dotson. Then we had Singletary, we talked about, 69 catches out of the backfield, second on the team, 500 yards, 7 touchdowns in the air, sensational. Mo Alley-Cox, the former Miami Dolphin, was signed in free agency in the offseason to a 2-year contract, and I thought he was one of the biggest disappointments of the offense. He only caught 36 passes for 342 yards, never found the end zone, dropped a lot of contested catches, missed 3 games. I thought he got outplayed by 6th-round rookie out of Iowa, Eric Ali, who had 25 catches for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, not as high of an average per game, but he had better average per catch. I think Eric Ali kind of outshined Mo Alley-Cox, and I'm thinking about, I don't know if he'll be the starter, so to say, next year. Maybe we go after another tight end free agency. Maybe we draft one. I don't know. But I think Eric Ali has earned the right to be above Mo Alley-Cox in the depth chart. And I think, Mo, who's going to be going into his age 31 season, is probably going to regress a little bit. He could be a potential cut in the offseason. So I was very disappointed with Mo Alley-Cox. We'll see what the future holds for him. Johnny Wilson was up next, the 3rd-round rookie out of Florida State. He didn't see the field a ton, but when he did, I thought he played really well. He only had 20 catches for 241 yards and didn't find the end zone, but he does have SAR depth. He is 6'7", and he can make the contested catch. It says only 87, but I thought he had, maybe outside Terry McLaurin, the best contested catch on the team. He made a lot of tough 3rd-down grabs of those 20 catches. I mean, you can see he had 2 catches week 1. I mean, he had a lot of games where he didn't have playing time. And then when we got some hurt to the wide receivers, he popped off with 7 for 83 versus the Bears, and then 3 for 44 against a talented Dallas secondary that's anchored by Trayvon Diggs. So I thought Johnny Wilson really played well. I do want to see him get some more snaps in his sophomore campaign, and that's kind of what makes players like Curtis Samuel expendable. Jahan Dotson, we'll see what happens with him, but I want to see more Johnny Wilson as he enters his 2nd season in the NFL. Antonio Gibson also added 239 yards in the air as well as 4 touchdowns. So again, a very good receiving weapon in his own right. De'Ami Brown, 12 for 101 touchdown. I like De'Ami Brown a lot. He's still relatively young, but he is a free agent after this year, and he's kind of just fallen down the wayside. I mean, he's got a lot of talented receivers in front of him, so I'm not sure if he'll be back next season. Cole Turner had 4 for 19, and then Rodriguez also had 1. Blocking wise, I won't spend too much time here, but overall, at least for the first 3/4 of the season, I thought the offensive line was incredible. I thought Andrew Norwell was a great pickup at left guard in the offseason. He's still under contract. He really anchored that middle. A lot of the reason why our run game, was so good is because of him in the middle of the field. We were able to run his side. We were able to run the left side a lot, and he really helped, which takes me to my second guy in Charles Leno Jr. Yes, he gave up 5 sacks, but there was an immense difference on the offensive line when Charles Leno was hurt for those 3 games. He only played in 14. We had to start undrafted rookie Derek Kramer, and no offense to Kramer, but I mean, we had not as much success running the football once Leno got hurt. So that's a testament to him. He is a free agent, and I was thinking about maybe moving on from Charles Leno, but those 3 games that he was out really helped solidify to me that he is definitely a big part of this offensive line. He's one of the better tackles in the NFL. I mean, he's a great pass blocker. He gave Kirk Cousins some time, and I do respect that. So I think maybe not moving on from Charles Leno yet is not a bad idea. At center, Ricky Stromberg was the center. He got hurt, and we didn't really get as much good play from the center spot, I would say. Nick Gates had to start, and even though he didn't give up a sack, I don't think he was nearly as good in the run game. We did draft Bryce Foster out of Texas A&M last year in the 3rd round. Maybe he gets some more playing time, but I don't think we necessarily need to go get a center, but I do want to see one of these 3 guys step up next year. Right guard was an interesting spot because we signed Matt Filer in free agency last year, and I thought overall he played well. But down the stretch, man, he kind of fell off. I don't know if it's because he's older, but, here's his ratings. He's a good run blocker, not a good pass blocker, but I honestly thought it was reversed. I thought he did better in the pass game. I mean, he only allowed 1 sack, so to speak, or 2 sacks, But down the stretch, after we destroyed the Giants, he was not the same. He actually did not start the last game of the season. We started Braden Daniels instead, and I thought Daniels did great. He was the starter at right guard year 1. He got benched this year when we signed Matt Filer. And I thought, he was moving people in the run game in that game against Atlanta. Especially for only 63 run block power and 75 with the temporary morale boost. I thought he played well past his ratings, and I'm down to, give Braden Daniels a chance to earn that job back in preseason next year. So, that good game in Week 18 has made going to get a right guard not really a top priority for me anymore. So, props to him. He's done a good job at that right guard spot. And then right tackle, we had Sam Cosmi. Kind of a mixed bag. He was good. He was also gave a couple of sacks. He also gave a couple of, rushes off that right side. We have Andrew Wiley on the bench. He's kind of a veteran. I don't think we need both of them, but I think Sam Cosmi is going to be there at right tackle spot. I do think, though, he is a free agent, so that will be interesting as well. Yeah, he is a free agent. No, he signed on for 2025. It says 2.1, so not yet, but that's something to think about in the future. On defense, I thought our defense played really well. I thought, honestly, they played better than the offense, despite what the statistics show. I'll start off with the defensive line, and when you talk about the defensive line, you have to talk about this man. 53 tackles for loss for Jonathan Allen. That's insane. With 12.5 sacks as well. A true game wrecker in the middle of that defensive line. 86 block shed, 97 power move. He stuffed the run almost on his own. Now, I will give, he might honestly also win Defensive Player of the Year because of those 53 tackles for a loss. That is insane. I don't know the record on that, but in my opinion, that's probably the record. Now, I do got to give some love to his defensive tackle mate in Daron Payne. His numbers don't look as good, 16 and only 2 sacks, but Payne ate up. If you watch a lot of our games back, Payne was the one eating up the double teams. He was getting doubled. He almost lined up as a nose most of the time, and he has good ratings of his own, so it's not really a slight to him. But it allowed Jonathan Allen to put up these kind of statistics. So if it weren't for Daron Payne eating up double teams, we don't see that kind of year at Jonathan Allen. So I want to give Daron Payne his props as well. And remember, this is a top 10 rush defense unit, even with some inflated stats. So props to them. And then on the edge, you had Montez Sweat, who led the team, with sacks with 13. Our defensive line is just really, really stacked. There's really not much else to say about it. Even Chase Young kind of bounced back a little bit. He had 11 sacks, so that was good because we signed him to a 3-year extension on the last week of the season a year ago. So he played pretty good. He got back to double-digit sacks. He stayed healthy for the season. The first time in his career he gets double-digit sacks. So, we kind of gambled giving him that 3-year deal. I thought about putting him on the franchise tag, but I'm kind of glad we did now because he cashed in year number 1. At the linebackers, Yamin Davis led the way with 143 tackles. He was good. He's a young guy out of Kentucky. We'll have to pick up his option, I think, after this season, and I think we will. He's coming to his own. And the rookie, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., 135 tackles, 18 TFLs, 2 sacks, 1 interception. He was our first-round pick at the pick after Shedeur Sanders, and he played great. He's in my opinion, should be in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He can cover, which I do think is his one weakness, but he can improve on. He's fast. He can get off blocks. He's really helped anchor that middle of the defense, and I'm excited to build our unit around him some more. And then at left outside linebacker, you don't see him, but Drue Tranquill was a pickup. He has some familiarity as a former Chief with our defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. He was signed in the offseason. He got hurt. He only had 68 tackles, but I think he's still a good veteran on that side of the football. He can still play an all-around game. I just hope he doesn't get hurt next year. As far as the secondary, we didn't get that many interceptions, but I thought overall the pass defense was pretty solid. Fuller had a pretty good year. He did a good job with deflections. He had 5 of those. I thought he could cover very well, so even getting into his 30s, he's still a guy I think we can count on. Emmanuel Forbes, I think, had an incredible season in his second campaign. Yes, he only had 2 interceptions and 1 pass deflection, but I think he has so much more pass breakups, and I think him and Fuller, at least for next year, are going to be the top 2 corners. He's only 23. He's a star dev. His ratings are getting better. He's somebody that's going to be on that side of the field. Fuller, on the other hand, is coming into his age 30 season, so I know regression is going to hit soon, but I do think, at least for next year, those two will anchor. The nickel spot's kind of been a revolving door. Benjamin St-Juste kind of had to step into that role because we did trade Diamador Lenore at the deadline, who, ironically enough, we picked up at the deadline the previous season. I thought he did okay. I think he was definitely the weak spot of the secondary. The slot guys kind of cooked us in a couple of games. Devonta Smith, to kind of be specific, of the Eagles, cooked us down the stretch. So I'd like to see an improved play out of him, so to speak. But despite our pass defense being bottom half of the NFL, I don't think we necessarily need to go out and improve the secondary all that much. Jartavius Martin, as a sophomore, played okay. He stepped into that position as a starter midway through his rookie year last year when we traded Derek Forrest to the 49ers. And I think he's still improving. I think he still has some ways to go. But, as a young guy at only 24 years old, I think his future is still pretty bright with that star dev. And that strong safety, Cameron Curl, I think he's also kind of the glue. He helps a little bit with covering those tight ends. I do think, tight ends play a little bit better against us than I would have liked. But, you can't really beat those cover stats at strong safety. So Cameron Curl is a very good defender over there. Lastly, kicking, the rookie kicker Cameron Little of Arkansas, who's actually white, only missed one field goal all season. He played really good. I never drafted kicker, but I did last year, and I don't regret it. Trustway was a pretty solid punter, but I do think I want to move on from him in the offseason. He's getting older, and his punting when I play with him is honestly not my favorites. He's not the most accurate. When you kick it normally, the ball shoots forward, so it's hard to get a touchback that way. And when you put backspin on it, it doesn't just hit the ground and stop. It backspins 10 yards. So I don't like his kicking. I would like a new punter in the offseason. So that does it for our stats. We'll quickly look at the league leaders going on around the NFL real quickly. As you can see in the passing game, Patrick Mahomes led the way with 4,800 yards. And then we were Dak Prescott, Bryce Young was third. Kirk Cousins rounded out with fourth. I don't think he's necessarily fourth, but that's just kind of like what I said with stats being a little inflated because of play games. Derek Carr also had 4,000 yards. Caleb Williams, the rookie number 2 overall pick out of USC, had a pretty solid rookie campaign. And then Jalen Hurts also had 4,000 yards. Your touchdowns leader was Patrick Mahomes, so he's probably on pace to win another MVP. Jalen Hurts had 36 touchdowns, Trevor Lawrence as well, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Anthony Richardson, Mac Jones, who in a make-or-break season really stepped up, I will say. Bo Nix, the rookie out of Oregon for Minnesota, stepped into the starting role. He played pretty good. I think he might win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Geno Smith and Brock Purdy round out the 30 touchdown groups. As far as interceptions, Kirk Cousins does tie the NFL lead with Drake May, the rookie in Los Angeles, and of course Zach Wilson. Deshaun Watson also had 20 plus interceptions. Not a good year for Deshaun Watson. I'm sure plenty of people are complaining or not complaining about that. Rushing wise, your rushing king is Josh Jacobs with a ton of yards, 1,600 yards, well past the next highest person, Jonathan Allen, 14. Ramondre Stevenson with 13, and then look at Bijan Robinson up there with 1,200, and then Devin Singletary with 1,200 of his own. Rushing touchdowns, Tony Pollard had 20 for the Dallas Cowboys, followed by Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Isaiah Pacheco. Blake Corum, the rookie out of Michigan, had 12 for the Bengals in relief of Joe Mixon's injury, and then Kenneth Walker Jr. as well. Receiving-wise, your receptions leader was Justin Jefferson. Jay Jettis had 116. As far as yards leader, it was Chris Olave with 1,500 of the Saints. McLaurin was second and a lot more efficient with 1,496. Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Ayuk, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deontay Johnson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, all up there as well. As far as your highest tight end, it was, you have to go a little bit down the board. No tight end actually had more than 1,000 receiving yards. I find that hard to believe. It was Gerald Everett with 837. So a little bit down year for the tight ends. Receiving touchdowns, Brandon Ayuk led the way with 17, followed by Amon-Ra St. Brown with 16, and then a couple guys with 13. As far as sacks, your offensive line, the worst offensive line was Cooper Beebe, the rookie for the Jets, and then Mekhi Becton. So that sucks for Zach Wilson. I know he didn't have a good year, but good Lord, your tackles kind of stink. Defense, C.J. Mosley of the, ironically enough, Jets led the way with 150. Tackles for loss, it wasn't even close. Sacks was Myles Garrett with 18. He led the league, followed by Greg Rousseau, who we actually saw break out last year in the Super Bowl. He continued it into another campaign. He's really broken out for the Buffalo Bills. Interceptions leader was Justin Reed with 8, followed by Gilmore with 7, as well as Christian Gonzalez and Ryan Neal. Kicking, I mean, is anybody perfect? Looks like a couple of guys were perfect from field goals. You know, Cameron Little attempted a ton of field goals. And then punting, we don't really care about. Kick returns, there were a couple of kick return touchdowns. Demetric Felton of the Browns, Bo Melton, and Jahan Dotson. We had 2 kick return touchdowns this season. And then punt returns, we had Marvin Harrison Jr., the number 1 overall pick for the Bears, have one, as well as Jaquindon Jackson out of Utah for the Arizona Cardinals. So I know this episode is running a little bit long, but that takes us to the second half of the episode where we have the playoff picture. And here's a look at the brackets. You know, we highlighted this at the end of last episode, but the Chiefs have the 1 seed, followed by the Jaguars, Patriots, Steelers, Bills, Bengals, and Broncos in the AFC. In the NFC, it's the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Vikings, the Falcons, Eagles, Giants, and Lions out there. Now, before we start simulating the games and figure out who wins the Super Bowl, I want to show you guys real quickly who I believe is going to make the Super Bowl. My little playoff prediction. I created a little graphic, and here it is for you right here. Here is a look at my playoff prediction. I'm going to go round by round. In the AFC, I do think we'll see a couple of quote-unquote upsets. I think the Bengals beat the Patriots, and I also think the Bills beat the Steelers, and I think the Jaguars end up handling the Broncos. While on the NFC side of things, the Eagles, even though they're the low seed, they're the hottest team going into the playoffs. I think they beat the Falcons with ease. And then otherwise, I think the Vikings handle the Giants and the 49ers handle the Lions. Then in the divisional round, I think the Chiefs get upset. I think the Bengals, they have Joe Burrow back. They have Jamar Chase back. I think they actually beat the Chiefs. I think they ride high off their win against the Patriots. That's a team I would not count out going into the postseason, even as a 6 seed. On the other end, I think the Bills beat the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are still just a little young. The Bills, they're trying to get back to the Super Bowl. They finally won a year ago, but I think they beat the Jaguars here. In the NFC, the Cowboys are going to cowboy. They're going to lose in the divisional round to the Eagles. Just even more salt in the wound for Dallas. While on the other end, I think the 49ers etch out a win against the Vikings. And then 2 championship games. I have the Bills beating the Bengals. I think that one is probably going to be the closest game of the postseason. That's going to be a tough one. And I think the 49ers barely edge out the Eagles. I think their run comes to an end of the championship game, which means I have a Super Bowl rematch from a year ago in my Super Bowl. I think the Bills and the 49ers are just the 2 best teams, but this year, I think the San Francisco 49ers get some revenge and win the Super Bowl. But those are my predictions. We'll go ahead and see what really happens in the playoffs. And, well, starting off exactly with the wild card round, it didn't go what I thought was going to happen. In the first game, the 7 seed Broncos actually beat the 2 seeded Jaguars 34-28. Shedeur Sanders, 354 passing yards. I mean, the superstar played like a superstar in his first playoff game. So they'll be facing the Chiefs in the second round. As far as the other 7 seed, the Lions beat the 49ers. So my Super Bowl favorite is already out the window. 24-21 is your final. Jack Campbell, 2 interceptions for the Lions. Nets them a massive upset victory over the 49ers. They'll face the Cowboys. And then the 3 seed Patriots beat the 6 seed Bengals 31-20. So I'm 0 for 3 on the first 3 games of the wild card round. Mac Jones played pretty solid. The rookie Malik Neighbors, 7 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown. The Patriots move on to the divisional game. And the other 3 versus 6, it is the other 3 winning as well. The Vikings beat the Giants 22-19. So I finally get one right. Rookie of the Year favorite, Bo Nix with 307 yards of passing, and he gets a win also in his first career playoff game. So who will the 3 seeds be facing? We'll start off in the AFC. It is the 2 seed Steelers, or the 4 seed, Steelers beat the Bills 21-20. So the 2 teams I think are going to make the Super Bowl get beat in the first round. Rookie Juice Wells had a good game for the Steelers. And then the other side of things, the Eagles do beat the Falcons 24-14. So I got 2 right in the wild card round. The Eagles continue their hot streak. Here's a look at the bracket after the first round. We got Chiefs, Broncos, Steelers, Patriots, Cowboys, Lions, and Vikings versus the Eagles. So we'll start ahead and sim the divisional rounds. One more firing. The Niners, they fire their offensive coordinator after their loss, so they are looking for a new OC out there in San Fran. First game, the Chiefs beat the Broncos. They humble Denver 42-13. Shedeur now in this game only had 117 yards and an interception. So he ran into a buzzsaw that is the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now the clear favorite in the AFC to make it to the Super Bowl. On the flip side, the Cowboys also take care of business 21-7 against the Detroit Lions. So both of the 1 seeds are still alive. They will still host the advantage going into their respective championship games. And we'll have to see who each team will face off. Starting off in the AFC, it is the Steelers who beat the Patriots 28-24. The next rivalry, the next chapter in this rivalry goes the way of Pittsburgh. And number 2 overall pick Caleb Williams is just 1 game away from playing in a Super Bowl in just his rookie season. And then on the NFC side of things, the Eagles keep their hot streak 26-23 over the Minnesota Vikings. Jalen Hurts 2 touchdown passes. So both championship games are set. In the AFC, it'll be the Chiefs versus the Steelers. In the NFC, it'll be NFC East rivals Cowboys, Eagles. 2 big-time matchups. Only 2 of these teams can go to the Super Bowl. So we're going to go ahead and sim who will make it to the big game. Well, in the AFC, it'll be the Chiefs. They beat the Steelers 28-14. 4 touchdown passes for Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City is back in the Super Bowl, looking to again win the big one. Who will they be facing? It'll be the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat the Cowboys 28-25. Dallas comes up short again. The Eagles continue to play hot. They've won 13 straight games. And this means we're going to have the Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. Yes, it is a Super Bowl rematch. These 2 teams collide once more in the final game. As just 2 years ago, these teams met in the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs won a close one 38-35, where Mahomes was your Super Bowl MVP. The Eagles have a chance to right and get that wrong and get some revenge. The last thing we'll take a look at is the Pro Bowl rosters. Who made it to the Pro Bowl before we get there? You can take a look at all the Pro Bowl selections on your screen. A couple of big ones. Bo Nix gets there. We had 4. Devin Singletary will get in the Pro Bowl. Our running back gets in, so there's 1. Terry McLaurin also gets selected as wide receiver number 4. I think it's a little low for him, but that's good for him. And then we had 2 on defense. Jonathan Allen, of course, gets it at the defensive tackle spot. And then also at defensive end, Montez Sweat gets named to a Pro Bowl, so I'm glad he got his, selection as well. And then we also had 5, actually. We had our kicker. Cameron Little actually got made to the Pro Bowl. So 5 Washington Commanders are selected in the Pro Bowl. Not bad for a team that finished 7-10. But you can see the rest on your screen. A couple of mainstays, a couple of rookies got in. We saw Bo Nix. We saw Malik Neighbors also make it in, so good for them in your Pro Bowl selections of 2024. A couple more coordinator firings. The Broncos fire their OC as well as the Detroit Lions. So we'll have to get the update on coaching changes coming in the next couple episodes. But that'll do it for this one. I know it was a little bit longer, but we had to recap the entire season. Next up, we will be live streaming the Super Bowl this Saturday, so you don't want to miss it. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you're excited for year 3, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.